Alright lads, my name is Metagoblin and today I'm outlining for you the Necroblight DPS system. I think this is an approach to your DPS which is going to become extremely viable in a raiding environment, especially when you have to AoE ads and stuff like that, but also for single target. I think the single target damage is actually more I think it is anyway, and I think it's extremely viable in a PvP environment because you can do a shitload of damage while not being in melee range, which is what has been the major problem for Unholy at the moment in PvP. So first of all, I'll run through the proper rotation for raiding, and then we'll talk about how to adapt it into a PvP environment, because it's just a slight change. It'll take me about 20 seconds to explain. So first of all, you're going to need two talents, which are Unholy Blight and the Necrotic Plague, obviously, because that's where the name comes from. It's like Necrotic Blight, so it's like Necrotic Plague, Unholy Blight, just in case you're wondering. The rotation revolves around building up the stacks of Necrotic Plague very quickly in the opener and retaining that dot for precisely 1.5 minutes until the cooldown of Unholy Blight is off and you can use Unholy Blight again. I mean, the simple way to control it is to always use Festering Strike whenever you have blood or frost runes, and when the duration gets to about 10 to about 15 seconds, depending how risky you want to be, you will start to actually use a few Festering Strikes with your death runes just to retain the dot up, and that isn't a problem at all because that's how the rotation works. The dot is the most important thing. It ticks, I think it's ticking like between 15 and 20k with my gear, which isn't that good, at about 660 item level, so 15 to 20k, that's really decent. That's as much as about a Scare Strike. I think that is actually more, and I've seen it critting as 25k, but that was in PvP. I don't know how much it's critting in PvE. It might be a little bit more, so it is critting a lot. It's doing a lot. Basically, it's doing a lot of damage in single target damage, so I think it's definitely an interesting rotation to try out. It's definitely a lot more complicated, but in my opinion, when a class is a little bit more complicated and you actually need to use your brain to learn to use the class effectively, I think that's a little bit more enjoyable rather than just spamming the shit out of the same key endlessly. So I'm going to teach you how to control it right now. So very simply, when you're pulling a boss, you do all the other stuff, but let's just focus on Necrotic Blight for now. You're going to pop, when you're melee range, Unholy Blight, and immediately just go into your Festering Strike and your normal rotation. If you want a proper rotation video, check out my main guide. Essentially, you're just doing the Festering Strikes and you're keeping the dot at a relatively good duration, and then you use your death runes with your Scare Strikes for most of the time. But when the dot gets pretty low, then you do want to start using your death runes with your Festering Strike. But generally, when your frost runes and stuff come back off cooldown, you will have enough time generally to keep it up, because each rune cycle you're extending the duration about 10 seconds. You see how it's getting low now, just rack it back up to 30 seconds. It's very easy to keep the dot up, it's not impossible. The only trouble you probably have is when you get out of melee range, and that can make things a little bit difficult. You do want to be spreading the dot to different players. It's very simple. You see, I have a dot ticking here. You just have to use one blood boil and that's probably enough. And you may think, this dot spreads automatically. That is nice, but it doesn't. It's not enough most of the time because the range isn't like that good. So really, you do need to use filling with the blood boil to get it spread out across the ads. Like on Beastmaster and Blocker at Foundry, when all those ads spawn, I just like splam blood boil a bit. I keep the dot retained on the boss, and I just like spread it out to the ads, and it's really easy. It's really easy. So for PvP, the only thing that changes really is the fact that you need to be spamming Festering Strikes pretty much 90% of the time. You may find a window of time for you to use your death runes with your Scare Strikes, but you want to be using Festering Strike a lot more because you're going to be melee range a lot less, and it's really important for you to keep that dot up. And I think it's still going to be increasing your single target DPS if you're focusing on retaining that dot up, because every 2 seconds it's like doing more damage than a Scare Strike. So it's definitely worth doing. It's a great rotation to adapt because you can extend the duration of Chains of Ice with Festering Strike as well, so you can keep your target pinned down while you're extending the duration and Necrotic Plague at the same time, so that's a really nice thing as well. The same thing with PvP. When it comes to spreading the dot, use the Blood Boil. Blood Boil is going to come in very helpful. What I tend to do actually is if I see someone like a healer out like really far away, what I do is I grip him in on a focus macro, and I grip him to the target and DPSing just before the dot ticks. So when the dot ticks, it spreads to him, and I don't have to use the blood boil. So he just saves a rune now and again, and perhaps you need to death grip anyway. So you know, when you force the enemy players to clump up a bit, you know, use your arena friends utility as well to help you out, like knockbacks, grips, whatever the hell you can use. Just to keep, it's nice to keep a dot on about 3 people all the time in freeze, because it's going to be a massive increase to your pressure. But you know, just work away around doing that, you know, with the blood boils, and control it, and make sure you keep the dot on. Because it is quite difficult to keep the dot rolling, but you'll need to keep it up for about 1.5 minutes anyway. So just all it takes is a lot of practice. Alright, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this little short video explaining the Necroblight rotation. If you want a more detailed rotation guide, then you should check out my main guide on my channel. I will leave a link in the description. My name is Metagoblin. Until my next video, ciao! My friend, I can't seem to stand. Nothing changes inside.